Good evening, everybody. This is Robin with another edition of Horror Pop After Midnight, and my guest is Brett Wagner, who is also known as the Lost Leatherface in the 2003 Texas Chainsaw remake, the famous hammer kill and the door slamming. How's it going, Brett?
Good, buddy. How are you? Seems like I just saw you a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, you saw me at Scarefest. I came up to you to see what you were all about, and you looked at my press pass and go, that's something. And I just said, no, it's not. It's just a press pass.
Yeah, that was a hell of a show. I've been jumping on the convention circuit the last couple of years pretty heavy, and, Horror Hound in Cincinnati, I don't know if you've ever been to that, is one of my biggest I ever did in my life. And then Scarefest. Wow. I mean, just an amazing show. Like 85 guests, for God's sakes. And no one does that. That's very tough to do, to get that many people. And then to bring in the crowd and all the vendors too. That's so really good show. Was really excited to got to do it, and hopefully I'll be coming back next year. So
yeah, Scarefest is a great show. I've been to it since the beginning when it was really small, and it started getting bigger. So this year was actually, their biggest crowd of fans, in my opinion, because of all the other shows I've got. And every year it keeps on getting bigger and bigger. I've been to Horror Hound. That's a great another promotion. I know Jeremy and Nathan real well, and they also have an awesome horror film festival I cover a lot too. So those are my two.
Yeah, Nathan Hanneman, he's a great guy. That him and his girl, they're great folks. And Cincinnati Bengal fans. The Cincinnati Bengals have won 4 in a row, so I know Nathan's very happy. Yeah, and they also do the Indianapolis and the Mask Fest thing too. So great people, good shows. I hope to get invited back to Horror Hound at some point, because that's just a fun show. It's nice when you're doing conventions and the people promoting it are professionals, and they know what they're doing. They have a great staff, and both Scarefest and Horror Hound have just tremendous staff, because if you don't have those folks, well, there he is. Look at him. He's all ready.
Hey, it's the Chainsaw Urban Legend Killbilly Nate, who is the biggest Texas Chainsaw Massacre fan I ever met. How's it going, Nate?
Hey, pretty good. I'm pretty happy to be here. I got work tonight, so I just woke up.
You just woke up. Hey,
take those glasses you had on with that camera and that shine. Yeah, get those glasses off there, Nate. Nate is he's a very interesting guy, right? He loves the horror. He knows a lot about the history of horror. Like, he loves the urban legend stuff, and then he's a pretty good wrestler too. So you put that all mixed together, and that's how Nate and me, we have this kinship, because we both love the same things.
Absolutely, I appreciate that.
Hey, Nate.
I'm not happy that he's younger than I am and looks better, but
no. Thank you, though. I appreciate that. I appreciate the compliment. Thank you.
Yes. Yeah. Hey, Nate, tell us about that big chainsaw that you made, which is pretty cool. I've seen you a lot play with around the wrestling rings.
Yeah. I've always loved Texas Chainsaw Massacre. That's a given. I love even like the worst ones. I just love them. There's something about the whole franchise that's very interesting and intriguing, and you either like it or you don't. So Part 3 was the first film I was ever exposed to as a little kid. So when you see the Excalibur, as it's called, and the reason it was called that is I think is the company that made the chainsaws for that movie, that's what they were called, I believe. So it just, kind of goes hand in hand with the sword and the stone. But anyway, long story short, that's my favorite one. The Leatherface wrestling gimmick had already been done. Corporal Kirshner was the first one, and then now Chainsaw Tony, he's still carrying on that torch of Leatherface for FMW. And then Terry Funk had done Chainsaw Charlie, and other people would carry chainsaws out to the ring like Cactus Jack. So I was like, that's already been done, so I can't do that, but nobody's ever carried the Excalibur out, so I can pay tribute to my favorite franchise and to my favorite gimmick at the same time. So
there was guys in Japan too, right? Japan had a Leatherface out there wrestling, and always a good gimmick. Yeah, but out of the chainsaw the history of it and the different movies, the Excalibur, the Part 3, not only one of my favorite movies in the franchise, but definitely has the best chainsaw ever. I mean, that's like, you're never going to be able to, there's not much you can do you're not going to be able to recreate that or make something better, right? It's
that's why it was like, it was really cool, like, because the guy that made it for me, his name is Eric, and he has a company, a studio called Disillusion Studio 74. So whether I was doing wrestling or not, I always was going to get this chainsaw. So I hit him up, got it for a really good price, and it's precisely, it's an exact replica of the chainsaw from the movie. Every part, every bolt. That's the reason it's so expensive, aside from it being chromed. So I was like, yeah, dude, I want to get this, because when I come out to the ring with this, it's making me an attraction. And, like, that's my favorite movie out of the franchise, aside from Part 1. And just to come out and have people see that, people always like ooh and ah, and they mark out over that chainsaw. So it adds something to me. If anything, I'll get one booking out of it everywhere. So,
and it's not light either. I mean, I was like, pick up this chainsaw, and we took some pictures over at Scarefest.
Yeah,
I was like, damn, this thing's pretty heavy.
And
that's why you work out a lot.
Yeah, I have to, because I blow myself up like kind of like the Ultimate Warrior running to the ring. So I've kind of worked myself into a shoot carrying this chainsaw out and swinging it. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome. And I love your mask you make, too, especially the cryptid mask. I like the one you did of the Mothman. That was pretty wicked.
Thank you. That's another thing, too. Like, we were talking, the Japan Leatherface, Corporal Kirshner. Like, that gimmick had been done, so Dahlia and myself, we had come up with the whole shtick of, well, what would happen if Leatherface was hunting cryptids? Or if, like, cryptids stumbled into the slaughter Sawyer farm, what would happen to them? So, Bigfoot, Mothman, Alien. So her and I, when we were training out in L.A., living out of our car under Rikishi, like, we started coming up with this concept and this ideal of, okay, chainsaws and cryptids. And so I attribute a lot of that to her. Like, I get to bounce all my ideals off of her and like what works and what doesn't. So because she's got a really good mind for not just the wrestling business, where she's got a background in acting and stuff. She really helps me. So
it does really work. It helps you out with your promos too. You do hell of a promos. I like them. They're like little mini movies. Kind of gives you like that 80s vibe feel.
He can cut promos. Nate cuts promos. Never heard of it. Never heard of it. No. Nate is one of the great guys. Nate goes into those promos very well, and as in the business of wrestling, if you can't cut a promo and you're a decent wrestler, they'll stick you with a manager, right? And you don't, even the Undertaker, right? The Undertaker for years was with Paul Bearer, and then when they finally, when he finally was doing his own thing, he could cut a promo, man. So you got to know your gimmick, you got to know your crowd, and you just got to know how to talk. And Nate can talk, and he definitely his gimmick, and he gets into it. So he cuts a very good promo. It's
I appreciate
you got
that.
to do it, man, because there's nothing worse than when you go to a wrestling show and somebody just cannot cut it on the stick, and you're like, oh gosh, because that makes that's why Ric Flair, Dusty Rhodes, that's why they would do these. They would, they're wrestling 2 or 3 times a week, but in between they'd be on TBS or, the Turner Network with WCW in the beginning. They'd be cutting promos for the following week because they would get people all pumped up. Oh my gosh, and and maybe a little fisticuffs, and then the next week they were in Charlotte for that match. But the weeks before they were cutting, a week before they were cutting those promos, 15-minute promos sometimes, man. I mean, just going off. And that's what that's what sells the match.
Yeah, I agree. And especially like with your background, Brandon, again, thank you for putting me over. Like the footage of like you put me over from Scarefest, that was like, I'm like a kid in heaven because I'm getting to finally meet you and hang out. And then I know you got a mind and a history in wrestling. And then to still have you put me over, it does mean a lot. So I really appreciate it. And you're right, because I grew up on like Steve Austin and The Rock. So that's what sold it. And like, even when you're looking at boxing and MMA, it's the promos. Like it's okay to like, I I love Dean Malenko, and I love Perry Saturn, and I love Lance Storm. That's cool. But what really sells, because we got to have a buffet when it comes to wrestling. But it's what draws me to not only cryptozoology, but to horror movies, especially slashers. It's characters. And like the hockey mask of Jason, Leatherface in the mask, Michael Myers, Pinhead, Chucky. It's characters. And that's the reason, Austin, Rock, Triple H, Mankind, you talk Dusty Rhodes, guys like that, that's what sucks you in and draws you in. So, yeah, the promo is very important. I'd rather go out and run my mouth as opposed to wrestle most of the time. So,
yeah. You can look at, Mick Foley, for God's sakes. You got to understand comedy, right? And whenever The Rock and Mick Foley, the Rock and Sock connection, those guys are people don't understand, they're on a whole different level. It's improv, right? If you're an actor, you go take an improv class.
Yeah.
You're on the spot. I mean, I used to have to go out if the ring broke or if there was something wrong with the ring, right? They got to kill 10 minutes while they're fixing the ring. So they go, swag, go out there and install the crowd. Well, you got to come up with something. I mean, if you're in a wrestling match, those guys, they may get, okay, this is what we need to get across. This is what this bit's going to be. This is what we need to get across. But those guys are going off on their own and just cutting promos on each other, and the guys are going with it. And when you have some experts that can do that, it's fun. It's a
wild, unique hybrid, man. It's athleticism, it's acting, it's stuntman work, and it's and you only get one take. You get one take to pull everything off, and it's really wild. And you bring up the comedy aspect. To somebody like Mick Foley and Kurt Angle, what was really cool about watching them, you could laugh your ass off at them and be like, oh my God, they're hysterical. But then when Mick Foley came out as Cactus Jack, you're like, oh, it's on. Or when Kurt Angle came out as the Wrestling Machine, you were like, okay, this is serious. And to be able to go, I would watch Mick Foley come out as Mankind and do love, okay, this is cool. And Mankind was different, of course. But when he was coming out as Cactus Jack, it was like, to be able to pull off 4 different characters, including the Mick Foley character, and to make people take you completely serious, you have to be very special to do something like that. You have to, it's crazy, to be able to pull that off in real time. And,
because my wife and me, we love AEW. Zoe Stark's a good friend of mine, so we'll watch Monday Night Raw to watch her wrestle. Cool. But Sami Zayn. Yeah. So, I didn't know much about Sami Zayn, but when he's sitting there and he's making everybody laugh in the ring and the Usos and everybody's trying to, turn away from him not laughing, that guy, see, that's something special when you can, because when you're getting your own guys to laugh and getting the crowd to laugh and stuff's funny. Yeah. So you have to be in this business nowadays. You got to be the complete package. And if you're not going to get the bookings, They're going to want to book Nate over someone, you could be 7 feet tall and gigantic and muscular, but if you can't do everything, if you can't make, there's psychology in wrestling. Right? Yeah, a lot of people don't understand that. What do you mean psychology in wrestling? So
there is. It's like I said, wrestling. It's a very unique, hybrid, weird world, and that's the reason, with my gimmick, I've fixed it to where I've never been beaten in any of my mat. I've never been pinned. But I can go out there without my mask, and I've kind of based my character without the mask on Velmer from Chainsaw 4 or The Cook or even Chop Top. I can be really goofy, I can scream, and I can get beat up. But when the mask comes on, I get taken serious, and I've never been beaten. So it is important to be the whole package. I can do comedy, I can do serious, whatever I need to do. You got to be diverse. So
yes, yeah.
I also noticed in pro wrestling that horror and pro wrestling are the perfect combination. You see a lot more of horror gimmicks in the ring now.
Yeah, you do, and I think they're so similar. There's such a marriage there between the two genres. From the fan base to, horror's always been kind of sewn into the fabric of wrestling, if you look at it, because, the blood or the hardcoreness or the gimmicks, whether you're going back in time to the Sheik, Abdullah the Butcher, or then you come up to even the 90s with Kane and Undertaker. Like, Undertaker, when I was a kid, reminded me of Pinhead from Hellraiser. Kane reminded me of Michael Myers mixed with Jason. Mankind, when he was in the brown, reminded me of Leatherface. So that marriage, I think, has always existed, and that's the reason you have a lot of crossover, like horror cons. I mean, and what's really funny, you take Brett. Brett was one of the Leatherfaces. He's got a background in wrestling. R.A., who was Leatherface from Part 3, he's got a background in wrestling. So, I mean, it is funny how they do intertwine like that.
Well, and it's look, if you look at your classical serial killers, they're all big brutes, man. I mean, even if they're not big brutes, but they're powerful, they're straightforward, they get the job done, and they're killing numerous people. You're a pro wrestler, you're big, you're strong, you're in there, you're roughhousing. It's kind of the same. Yeah. It's, it's just that we're not killing people in the ring.
Yeah.
Allegedly.
Yeah, well, that's true, too, and that's like, right, and it's so funny because I consider myself either a big little guy or a little big guy because I'm just normal size and stuff. So I grew up in both of these worlds, and I've always wanted to be like 6'8" and just massive. And like when I stopped growing, I might be 5'11" on a good day. And when I stopped growing, I was like, man, that sucks. So yeah, both worlds are known for like the big brutes and the big guys.
But yeah, but you don't. You're in really good shape, and you are more muscular than the average human being. So, but it's about it's the power and the strength, and even Michael Myers. You can go back the Jasons. They were all super strong. Most of your wrestlers, anybody that gets in the wrestling business, you would sit there and go. Even the fat guys, and I'm talking 400-pounders in wrestling are in good shape. And when you see a guy doing a match who's 450 pounds and he's doing 10 minutes, I couldn't do 10 minutes right now in the ring. I'd be blowing up. So
that's what I tell a lot of people. Like, you can go and do an hour on the Stairmaster, and that's my favorite cardio thing to do because of the heart rate, getting it up and down, because that's what wrestling is, up and down, up and down. And there's a completely different being in ring shape is completely different than being in shape. That's why it's important to have both. That's why when you look at like Mick Foley, Dusty Rhodes, Big Van Vader, Bam Bam Bigelow, you look at those guys and be like, but bro, they can go out there and like blow you up.
Oh, totally. I mean, I used to. I know we're going off topic, but Bigelow and Vader in Japan. I mean, I was a huge Bam Bam Bigelow fan. I just, I loved him. I was a huge Vader fan. I was a huge Stan Hansen fan. So a lot of these big guys went over and made their last part of their careers. Yeah. If they weren't in the WWE, they were in Japan. And some of those guys were in Japan even before their careers were over because they were so over. I mean, I can't even imagine... even if I was in wrestling and seeing some of the, Stan Hansen, how he would just destroy these guys. I mean, if you wrestle Stan Hansen, you better be in some kind of shape. Yeah. And that guy would do an hour.
Yeah, I know.
Would do an hour in the ring.
And what's crazy about that is they weren't calling the matches from A to Z at that point. They're going out there and calling it in the ring like Ric Flair. They're going out there and this is what we're doing. And it's like a real spot. It's really cool. So,
speaking of
to see Iron Man matches now, over the last couple, you would get the Heartbreak Kid would do, or somebody would do an hour, an Iron Man match, and people don't realize that that's even if you have set this whole thing up, that's still a lot. Hey man, you're gonna do a half hour outside of the ring, anyways, right? So it's just crazy stuff. But back in the day. Ric Flair and all these guys sometimes would be the headliners on a thing, and they're doing 45 minutes. Dusty Rhodes and Ric Flair doing 45 minutes, back in the 80s, and you're just going, people just don't understand it. Anyways, sorry.
That's all right. And speaking of, like, horror gimmicks, too, since we all like AEW, I'll tell you another great gimmick on there is you got to like Dan Hossing.
Oh, yeah. Dude, he liked Svengoolie, you know what I mean? It's like the Twilight Zone mixed with Svengoolie, and reminds me of Texas Chainsaw 2, like Chop Top. So, yeah, absolutely love Dan Housen.
Yeah.
Dan Housen's great. I wish he would stay healthy. I mean, every time, I love Dan Housen. And, his merch is one of their biggest sellers, too.
I saw that. That was definitely a fan favorite.
The Lucha Brothers too, man. I love the Lucha Brothers, man. They not only can they wrestle, but I love their whole gimmicks, man. And they have one of them has a store here in Los Angeles, up in Pasadena area. So they're out here a lot signing.
That's awesome.
I bet you Brett. I could see Brett wearing a Dan Hossing t-shirt.
I can see that. I
got shirts, man. I got them all. I support all these. I love to support these guys. Look, when you get to a certain point, you don't care. I'm almost 56 years old. I wear some weird stuff, man, when I'm going around. I don't really, unless I'm going to a wedding or I have to dress up for something, some corporate deal. I'm in my long gangbanger shorts, my blood clot socks, and I'll be wearing like a Oompa Loompa shirt. I don't care. It doesn't really matter.
That's pretty.
I'm about to say I usually got flip flops on. So,
let's talk about a film that you wrote. It hasn't came out yet, and hopefully it does in the near future. Kill Billy.
Yeah, I wrote a script called Kill Billy, but my man here is the Kill Billy, so I'm hopefully he won't sue me with the rights to it. So
no,
we'll get him in there somewhere. Yeah, I wrote with my buddy Steven Nyber. He's called The Monster Machine. He writes a lot of hybrid horror movies. Anaconda versus Godzilla, this different stuff, and
that's cool.
We wrote a movie about vampires and ghouls and coming out of the holler in Kentucky and then the Chicago, and it's very it's a horror movie. It's like Next of Kin, if you remember that movie Next of Kin, but with the families, the one's of vampires, one are ghouls, and just I got to wait for one of us to win the lottery so we can get it made. But I mean, you got to do everything in the entertainment business. If you can write, you write. I mean, even if you don't have just a couple ideas about a story, you just write it down, and eventually you can. I mean, I didn't know how to write a script, and my buddy, I kept telling him about my idea for this movie, and he said, "Well, why don't we write it?" And I said, "I can't write." He's like, "Well, I can write it. Let's just, we'll sit down and have meetings and sessions, and finally got a script done, a really good one, but." That's only like 10% of the battle getting that done. Now you got to sell it. Now you got to, and I can even get actors attached to it, but then you got to get the money. So the money is the hard part. Although there's a lot of money up there in that Pikeville, Allen, Kentucky area. So I just got to have to grease the wheels.
Shoot, Nate should know about that. He's from the Appalachian Mountains.
Oh, actually, where Brett mentioning there, that's my hometown of Pikeville, Kentucky. There's right there where all that Hatfield and McCoy, what I call the hillbilly Romeo and Juliet. That's where all that stuff happened. Yeah. So
they got the cemetery up there, right? They got, I don't know if it's a Hatfield or McCoy cemetery right up there in the Pikeville.
I think I will say McCoy, but I can never keep it straight. I'm not sure, but it is up there. Hell, we even have a car wash the last time I was up there called the Hatfield and McCoy car wash, so... I always wanted something cool there. I mean, and that's okay, especially like when the TV show came out in 2012. People went crazy over it. So we started getting a lot of tourism back there. But I always wanted something like 2 hours over in West Virginia's Mothman. I always wanted something like that instead. So I kind of adopted Point Pleasant as like my secondary hometown. I go over there all the time.
Yeah, speaking of that, since from the Appalachian Mountains, they must have some urban legends or cryptids around there too.
Yeah, over in Hopkinsville, Kentucky, there's the Hopkinsville Goblins, which is just the story of little extraterrestrials attacking a family, and that happened actually in the 1950s. So you're talking rural Kentucky in the 1950s on a farm. And this family, not one person or two people, but a whole family, they are attacked by a group of aliens, little 3-foot, 4-foot aliens, and it became known as the Hopkinsville Goblins. But everything that happens, and it's so weird too, because actually Dahlia and myself, we actually saw a spaceship in 2013, and there's this whole theory, because there were some goblins in Hellier, Kentucky, which is on the other side of Pikeville, and then you have the natural cave system in the Appalachian Mountains, like Mammoth Cave. So the theory is that these goblins, these aliens, that they're using these underground cave systems. But, that's a whole nother thing, and I'm all about that stuff. Anyway, but yeah, we have like the Hopkinsville Goblins. We have our own Bigfoot and things like that. So
yeah, that's pretty wild. And another thing too is if you notice when you see a UFO, it's always connected to Bigfoot. There's always a Bigfoot sighting.
And I have a theory about that. So positive energy attracts positive. You know, you'll be having a good day and like everything's going right, hitting on all cylinders, like everything's firing, bam, bam, bam. But then when you have a bad day, oh my God, when it rains, it pours. Same thing with supernatural energy. When one supernatural thing happens, another will happen and another will happen. Prime example, the whole Mothman scenario. You got Bigfoot, aliens, injured cold, Mothman himself, Men in Black. All this supernatural stuff is happening. So I'm a big believer of energy attracts energy. Supernatural attracts supernatural. Bad attracts bad. Good attracts good.
So, where can it? Yeah, go ahead.
No, you're good. No,
Okay. Yeah, I love urban legends and all that. And this is why I like my podcast. So we can talk about everything we want, you know. I can go from horror to pro wrestling. It's my show and it makes it so unique.
Yeah.
And so far this has been a great podcast. So where
Thank you for having me.
so where can everybody find you guys on social media to see what you guys are doing next?
Nate, go ahead, buddy.
I'm all over social media, Evil Nate, so you can find me on anything on there, TikTok, YouTube. I'm growing my YouTube channel, almost got 500 on there, subscribers, so I think that's really cool. I'm doing a lot of vlogging when Dahlia and myself are out on the road and we're making towns, or I'm going to pick up chainsaws from somewhere, whatever I'm doing. So we try to vlog everything now because it's a lot of fun. It's very important to take the picture, take the footage. All that is super important, in my opinion. So anything Evil Nate, you can find me on any platform. So
yeah, you can find me on Facebook, Brett Wagner, The Big Schwag, Lost Leatherface, The Big Schwag on Instagram, and Instagram and Facebook could probably because I do a lot of advertising with that for upcoming projects or. I like it. The TikTok, I'm going to leave that to Nate. He's younger. He's a TikTok legend, they say. So
not me.
I don't know. I don't know how. I'm not into the TikTok. Maybe I'm just too old. I didn't go into Instagram for a while, and I was like, all right, I'll go get an Instagram.
Yeah.
I love it. But yeah, you can look up the Big Schwag or Lost Leatherface or Brett Wagner, and it's kind of easy to get a hold of guys like me and Nate because we put ourselves out there in the social media, so we're not hard to find.
All right.
Not at all.
Guys, go ahead.
Before we go, I just wanted to really quick, sorry, because I got to run to work anyway. I got a 10-hour shift tonight. Woo, can't wait. I want to just give a shout-out to Dahlia page, because today is like National CRP Awareness Day, and it's also National CRP Awareness Month. And that's just something that she's been battling for the better part of 6 years. And I'm just trying to bring awareness to it because it's something we deal with every day. And it's chronic pain that never stops. There's good days and there's bad days. And she's a big inspiration for me.
Is that just in the feet or is that everywhere that pain goes anywhere?
So you get trauma. And it can be a hand injury. It can be a foot injury, like in her case, because she had plantar fasciitis and tore the ligament. Then she had the surgeries that she had, 4 different surgeries. So when you have certain trauma to a certain part of the area, your brain is in overdrive 24/7, and it's constantly shooting pain. Your spine is sending the pain signals to your brain, and it never shuts off. You have high pain days and you have low pain days. So she is battling this in constant, consistent pain without doing any type of like pills or anything like that. Like she's always doing this. She's going to work. She's going to the gym, and it's something that I've definitely become passionate about. Yeah, I've definitely become passionate about it. Sitting in the passenger seat, watching her go through what she's had to go through, and we're on a journey right now for her to return to the ring, and it's extremely close for her. So I just wanted to bring awareness to that and give a shout out to her because she's kicking ass every day battling this chronic, constant pain.
Yeah, good, man. That's good. You tell her hello for me and keep the fight up. And Yeah, that's great. And where are you going to be wrestling next? What's your next? Where are you going to be?
Hey, thank you. I'll tell you said that. The next place I'm going to be is Pay Your Dues Wrestling. It's in Maryland. I'm wrestling a guy named Ken Dixon. I'm pretty positive he was on Ring of Honor before the pandemic, and it got bought out by Tony Khan. So he is at, I think, that next level for somebody to step in the ring with. And I've actually been getting to step in the ring here over the past 6 months with some guys that are on that next level. So it'll be a really good challenge for me.
That's
That's where I'll be. I'll be up in Maryland. Yeah, thanks.
All right, Maryland, where the Terps are, Terrapins. I'm all over the place. Going to be at the gas station, which you've been to in Bastrop, Texas, over there, the original gas station, November 19th, I believe I'll be signing there. And I know you and Dahlia have been up there before, so I'll be there, Roy Rose. And then, of course, I'm going to be in New Jersey December 16th with Felissa Rose, doing something from the New Jersey Horror Festival. And then Creep IE Con in Ontario, California, big one February next year. And then two movies, Midnight Maniac and Stranglehold, which I'm excited we're going to hopefully be shooting in the new year. So, but yeah, and then hopefully in 2024, I'm going to be able to get out there and walk Nate down to the ring. That's his match or something. So that's what I'm trying to plan on, even if it's a return to Pikeville, Kentucky, for a little wrestling up there in Pikeville. We'll have a good return. But
hey,
Lexington.
Hey, count me in when that happens. Nate, I want to be there too, man. I want to witness this, seeing Big Brett, coming back to the ring as your manager, bring you in, and you got to let him come down with the chainsaw.
I can't carry that thing. That thing's too. I'll be blown up by the time I got to cut promos, man.
The goal, what I got planned, the goal, and then I'll let you guys go, is it should be myself and Dahlia coming out, and we're trying to get it to be Brett and then RA, so two Leatherfaces walking out, the Chainsaw Queen, and then, me, so.
All right, guys, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you, buddy. Nate, have a good day at work. Enjoy yourself. Tell the girl I said hello, and thank you for having us on, big man.
Hey, anytime. I'm definitely going to have you guys on again because you guys are fun. We can talk more stories. All right, and everybody.
Thank you, Robin. I appreciate you. Thank you, Brett.
Oh, yeah. Thank you too, Brett. I appreciate both of you guys. Everybody have a great